Well, good day, everyone. This is Bailey Guinigundo with Central Florida Review. I am here, very honored to be here with Mr. Andres Cepeda. This is a several Grammy Award winner. So I'm just going to read this off. Best Pop Song, Song of the Year, Best Traditional Pop Album. So, I mean, and that's just Grammys. We're not even, we don't have enough time, I think, to go over your other accolades. So thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you, Bailey. It's a pleasure.
So, Andres is about to kick off a very significant tour. I believe your first date is coming here in 2 days. Is that correct? In Chicago?
Yeah, I'm gonna begin this last part of the tour in Chicago. I've been touring with this same show and album. It's been almost 2 years of touring, and this is the last leg of the tour. It's going to be 14 cities in the U.S. It's amazing. Before we pack our bags again and begin to plan the release of our next album and another tour probably on 2026 and on 2027. So it's been a great ride, and these last shows I'm planning to enjoy them as much as possible because I have had so much fun touring with this Bogota, the Gira, which is how we named it, and it basically it's in support of our last album, Bogota, which was also nominated for the Grammys, and we won a Latin Grammy. It's been a great ride, and I love this album. I'm so happy with it, and it's kind of mixed feelings because the tour is ending, but and I can kind of have some nostalgia about that, but I'm also looking forward for the next record to come out and release new music and all that stuff.
That is very exciting. So I all the best to you on this upcoming
Thank you.
tour.
Thank you.
So when you're concluding a tour after having done this for 2 years with such a tenured group of individuals, I mean, what is it still exciting after 2 years of the same songs? I mean,
Yeah.
this is, and mind you,
Yeah.
we're approaching 4 decades of this isn't just 2 years. This is four
Yeah.
decades of performance from you, sir. So, my question, like, how do you stay motivated? How do you stay excited about still performing these days?
Sure. Every tour is different from the one before. We change our approach with the repertoire, with the scenery, with the musicians, with the arrangements, with the narrative behind the songs, with the lighting, with the visuals. Every tour we try to do something completely different, so the audience doesn't get bored to see us again, and we don't get bored playing all over and over the same show. It's been around almost 60 something shows with this Bogota tour, and we kind of changed it a little bit during the last 2 years. We have been making different arrangements, different uh, I don't know, ways to approach this repertoire, so we still keep motivated. Anyway, I really enjoy very much being on the road, being on stage. Is my favorite part of this work. I love being in the studio as well, but there's nothing like being on stage live. It's great for me. It's the thing I dreamt of when I was a little kid, and I still enjoyed it as if I was a teenager, which is when I started making music. My first album was my first band. I was around 16, 17 years old, and it's still magic to me. I enjoy it so much.
So, if my research is correct, you started piano very early,
Yeah,
and
around
were
4 or 5 years
advised.
old now.
So I was also about five when I started. I clearly did not. I was not as successful as yourself, but my understanding, you were advised to sing because you actually had a speech impediment
Yeah,
previously.
a very strong stutter growing up.
Okay.
And I was studying piano since maybe 4 or 5 years old. And when I was beginning, when I was becoming a preteen boy, I had this very notorious speech problem. And the person I was working on it with told me it would be a good idea to sing along with the piano. And that would really help me, besides other type of therapy. That would be a great idea, and I did. I began singing and playing the piano and singing along, and it gave me two great things. One of them was I very slowly began overcoming this speech problem. And by the other on the other side, I also discovered I liked to write songs. So these two things were very important to me. And when I was around 16 years old, 17 years old, I had the chance to release my first album with a band that was called Poligamia back in Bogota. Back in the day, we had this school rock band, and we got into there was this big radio network in Colombia which launched uh, um, um, how do you call it? Un concurso. Man, I lost it. We participated in a selection of the best rock band of all the schools in Colombia, and we
The
won
competition.
that contest. Yeah, and we won that
Okay.
contest. And winning that contest, we were able, first of all, to record our first. That, on those days, it was called a mega single, a maxi single, and this maxi single was aired on all these on this big radio network. So we had our first hit. At the time, we were number one in Colombia for about 3, 4 months, and
Mhm.
it really launched my career. I was still very young. I was still beginning to discover all this music business industry, and I really loved it. And I got hooked on it, and I didn't look back. I never looked back again. I was with the band for about 8 years. Then the band dissolved, and a few years later, I started a career as a solo artist again in the year 2000, and I've never stopped since. I began very early, and I really love the chance to begin so young, and I don't know any other way of living life besides music, because I started so early. I can't imagine myself doing anything else.
So you knocked out my next question, which is good. So Polygamia, I mean, it wasn't just a band. You released four albums, if I remember correctly, four albums, and I
Yeah,
think you
4 albums
released
with the band. Yeah.
yeah, and then after that, I think you released another six as solo artist, I believe, ish.
Yeah, I began in the year 2000 as a solo artist, and it's
Mhm.
been 16 albums since, studio albums and a few live albums too.
So as an early songwriter, so back in your Polygamia days, right? So when you're writing that music, that for again 4 decades, like fast forward to now, I mean, how has your approach to music writing changed from when you were back then and versus this
It was
week?
actually it was actually 3 decades ago. It's gonna be
Okay.
four in a few years from now. But yeah, I started writing music because I wanted to communicate. Since I had this speech problem,
Okay.
which I was working on, I found out that writing music, writing songs really helped me get through to people, especially when I was so young. I was a teenager, and I wanted to meet girls, and I wanted to go out with girls and have my first girlfriends. And I found that music was my great ally, my weapon to be to be able to communicate. And I found it really amazing to be able to tell my own stories, my own feelings, everything that went through my head through the songs. And that was my first approach, which was, of course, very naive, and it was the beginning, but it was a nice way to get in touch with my craft. Then later on, in my early 20s, I began my solo career, and I began being a little bit more serious about songwriting. And I had already been in the United States studying sound engineering and production, and it helped me a lot to begin my solo career, and be really focused on what I was working on. I wrote many of the songs, I produced the records with other people, I engineered the albums, mixed them. So I've been very involved, because I didn't only study music, but also this production and sound engineering career later on.
That's pretty amazing. So when you're okay, my wife is a nurse, and I think when there are certain nurses, certain professions that when you go through it, there's a thing there where you don't want your child to necessarily do the same thing because you've seen the
I know.
the, the bad things about it. So, question for you, your family, I believe you have three children. If one of the
I'm the youngest of five.
youngest of five, but you yourself, you have three?
I know I don't have kids. No, I
Oh,
don't.
you don't have kids. Okay. So, if how would you do you have nieces or nephews?
Yeah, a bunch of them. Yeah,
Okay.
I have
So
a bunch of,
let's say
yeah.
one of them comes up to Tio Andres and says, "Tio, I want to be a musician like you." Is this something you would recommend, or it's like, you know what, I've seen, you might want to go do something else. What would your
No,
recommendation
I,
be?
I would support them. I would recommend it to them, but I would make them realize how hard it is. I would make
Yeah.
them realize there's a lot of factors for you to be successful in music. You don't only need to have talent and passion, and you have to prepare yourselves and study, but you also have need to be very lucky. It's a very very long and winding road, and it's difficult to be successful. You really have to work very hard, and you need to be lucky in the sense that you have the right opportunities and be ready to grab those opportunities. It's not an easy road, but I would definitely support them because I know when you take a decision like this, it's because you really feel better, because you really believe you can do it. And I would be supportive, yeah. Them decided to instruments, they sing, they're aficionados, but they didn't take it as a career, maybe because they have seen how hard it is. They have seen me struggle. I can't complain. I have it's been great for me, but it's also difficult, and there's a lot of sacrifices you have to you have to do family wise. Most holidays you are out working crazy late hours. There's a lot of sacrifice involved in this career, and probably they have seen it. But they are pretty musical, and some of them play really nice piano and guitar and sing and stuff.
That's beautiful. So you were talking about timing, and there, I think over time, 3 decades only, sorry, 3 decades.
It's okay.
But you've undergone some heartache. You've gone over some of the shaping of the tour. You've gone through some of the headaches, some of the happy stuff. Now you fast forward to today, where some of these kids are getting discovered off of one song off of the internet. It's a different discovery, it seems. So my
Definitely.
question to you, like, do you think, in your opinion, how does that type of experience help or even maybe possibly hurt today's musicians, right? So you're a brand new musician, you're a teenager, you just got popular because you got one song that made it real popular.
Yep.
I mean, what kind of advice would you give to this person that wants this to become a long-term career? What would you advise them on longevity?
Okay, for starters, I think it's really hard for a new artist, a new young artist to make himself be noticed today because there's so much going on. There's this great amount of music being released every day. It's funny because uh, people have much more access today to
Mm,
recording, to be published, to be no known today. But there's so many things going on. There's so many people trying that it makes it very hard for someone to be noticed. No, so I think a good advice would be you really need to be very original and very authentic and have a very particular own voice, not just your vocals or just your physical voice, but your style, the way you write, the way you perform, the way you sound, because maybe the only way to be noticed is to be really, really authentic and original, and you have to work very hard on that. And that takes time. You don't find your own voice that easily, that fast. You have to work on it many years, find yourself, what you want to say, how you want to say it. At the beginning, normally us artists are always trying to emulate someone we admire,
mm.
somebody up to, and it takes a while to find your own style and voice. And but I think that would be the main advice: be as original and as authentic as you can be.
I think that's been, at least when I've listened to your music online, that's what I've heard. It's been a lot of your sincerity comes through, and I think that's, in my opinion, right? I think that's contributed greatly to your longevity, and that's given you your staying power, which is thank you. So, question. Question for you. So back in the day, you had influences. Your family was musically inclined. There was jazz
Yeah.
influence, boleros, Colombian music, classical rock, merengue, bolero. So um, if I were to listen to your iPod right now, or your vinyl, or your radio station, what kind of music are you listening to these days?
It's funny because you fall in love for music when you are very young, and you kind of keep that love for that music for the rest of your life. Maybe after the 30s, 40s, you are not able to receive that much of new music. That's kind of hard.
Mhm.
I try to, but mostly today I listen to a lot of classical music, a lot of jazz, a lot of boleros, which I love. Mostly over everything else. And I really enjoy listening to the 80s, 70s, and 80s rock music from Latin America. This Latin rock movement around the 80s, I really enjoyed it because that's what I heard when I was growing up. So it stayed with me. I try to listen to new things, but it's not that easy now. I'm almost 53, but I give it a try, and once in a while I find new things that really excite me. But it's not that easy. You tend to keep listening to what made you happy when you were very young. You know that's I think everybody can relate to that.
Definitely, definitely. And so, Sarah, I'm going to wrap this up with one more question, if that's all right.
Okay.
You talk about like the things that are familiar to you. So, a question after 53 years young, you are still young, so you don't look 53.
That's a
Yeah,
that's nice thing
good.
to say.
I'll have to talk to
53
you.
years young.
53 years young. So, question for you. So, Bogota, Colombia, like how how does home still continue with you today with all this traveling and this touring? Like what influence and how are you able to keep that part of home still part of your life these days with all of that
Okay.
touring?
I still live in Bogota, although I travel a lot, but I still live. I always go back home to Bogota. I spent a, a good part of the year there, and it's funny. I had the chance to buy and go back to live in the house where I was born and grew,
Oh,
which was really interesting because when I went back to that house, I came back home and I found everything just mostly like I remembered it. And there was just one thing missing, which my mom wasn't there, my dad wasn't there. And when I found that, I realized that yeah, I could buy the house, but I couldn't buy back time. You know, I couldn't take back time, and that gave me a certain feeling that drove me to write this song Bogota and the rest of the album, because I thought if I can have this very strong feeling going back to the house where I was born and grew, why not go around Bogota taking notes and realizing the cafes, the avenues, the parks, the places I studied in, the places I've lived in, where my girlfriends lived, where my friends have lived. And I went through around the city, um, taking notes and making memories of those places and on what they meant to me. And that was how the Bogota the album was born. And I realized, well, one way to be always connected with home, with Bogota, and that and that place where that was so important for me was to make those memories songs and travel around with them and make other people know Bogota from my point of view, from my eyes, as when I was reading novels very young, and I never visited Madrid or Buenos Aires or Mexico or New York, but I had an idea of those cities because of what I read, what I listened to, the movies I watched. And I thought, well, I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to try to portray Bogota to the world through these songs. And I think it was a good idea. I really loved the album. I think it's one of my best works, and it's being recognized, and I'm really happy about it. And I learned a lesson that over and over again life gives me, which is try to look inwards, try to find inside the answers for your creative processes. And that's exactly what happened with Bogota, and I think it came out really well.
my God, Andres, this is so insightful. I cannot thank you enough. This is going to mean so much to so many people. Um, all the best on your
Thank you,
tour.
Bailey.
Specifically the 19th in Tampa, the 21st at Steinmetz in Orlando, which I will be there
Yep.
happily, and 22nd back down in Miami. Andres,
Yep.
thank you so much. It was
Thank you so
sincerely a
much, Bailey.
pleasure. All right. You
My
take
pleasure
care.
too.
Take
See you
care.
soon. I hope you can
Okay.
go and be with us in one of the shows, okay? Or
Orlando,
others.
I will be there, sir.
Okay, I'll be looking forward to that. Bye.
Thank you, Andres. Take care. Bye bye.
Yeah.